What's up, Trax viewers? Luke here, bringing you guys a late in the season walk around video on a vehicle we've actually had here for quite some time. I did the test run on it a while ago, but I didn't do a walk around, so I wanted to give you guys sort of a walk around. You're going to get a lot of the same impressions from my test ride. But what have we got here? 2022 CFMOTO ZFORCE 950 HOEX. So this is the newest ZFORCE 950. It is an improvement over the previous version of the ZFORCE 950 in a couple ways. Basically, it is CFMOTO's highest performance sport side-by-side. It features things like double A-arm front suspension and trailing arm rear suspension, first time they've done that. It's got 15 inches of travel in the back, 13 inches up front. Got CFMOTO branded piggyback shocks that are compression and rebound adjustable, as well as spring preload, obviously, with dual rate springs, or helper springs, I guess. So it's a really well-spec'd sport side-by-side. You got 29-inch tires on 14-inch aluminum. These are real beadlock wheels, and the tires are good tires. They're kind of a no-name brand type tire, but they're still a good tire that gets pretty good traction. You got neat accent lighting, front and rear. I really like how this accent lighting works. Now, speaking of looks, that is something that is very subjective. I've had people say that they love how this vehicle looks, and I've had other people say that they can't stand it. It does have a very, very different look, and if you can say anything about it, you can say that it's probably the most unique looking side-by-side in the industry. It doesn't look like anything else, and that's good in a lot of ways. When you buy a side-by-side, maybe you want to look unique. You don't want to look like everybody else, and a lot of sport side-by-sides are starting to look very similar. So this one, you're not going to get lost in the crowd, that's for sure. The HOEX, this thing has a 963cc twin-cylinder motor. It's 90 horsepower. The power feels pretty good. It's not by any means 160 horsepower, it's 90. But it does get moving pretty good. The low end is really good. The motor runs well and sounds good. I like how it sounds. But you know, you got to be realistic about what 90 horsepower is. It is 90 horsepower. It's not going to be on par with a lot of the other higher horsepower models. It would compete with things, you know, like the Segway Villain, Maverick Sport, or Razor S. It's kind of in that zone in terms of performance. It is 64 wide though, which is different than, say, the Maverick Sport or the Razor S. Those are both 60 wide and they don't have trailing arm suspension. So it kind of fits into this weird category that doesn't really have a whole lot of actual competition. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. This one is spec'd out with some extra goodies. The winch is included from the factory. That is a standard feature, as is the roof and these doors. Things like the mirrors, the windshield, the rear deflector, the box in the back, that's all extra. That's stuff that has been added by CFMOTO before we got our hands on it. Basically, like, how does it work? That's kind of the big question. And what are some of the things I liked and some of the things I didn't? So what I liked initially, one of the things I liked the most is the transmission. You can't fault CFMOTO for how their transmissions work. They are so buttery smooth shifting. It's flawless how the transmission works in this. I know that sounds silly. I'm talking about the actual shifting transmission. Now the CV transmission is another story. This thing actually has real CV Tech clutches, which are industry high-end clutches. It's always been a bit of a conundrum for CFMOTO, which seems to be a little bit of a more value-oriented brand, to have CV Tech clutches, but they do, and this one does, and they are tuned very, very well. You can't fault CV Tech on anything. Their clutches are high quality and they do a great job tuning them. So that's a really nice inclusion on this vehicle. Also has decent bucket seats with some bolstering on here. I do like the material. They're very grippy. These doors are interesting because the base model ZFORCE just has this panel here, and it's not a door, it's like a intrusion bar is the best thing you could describe it as. The 950 HOEX comes with this lower portion of the door, and I gotta say, that's a great inclusion. Now, it's not really like fully waterproof. It doesn't have a seal on it. Even back here, there is an opening, so it's not fully waterproof. But what it does, combined with these little deflectors here, is it keeps the mud from flying up onto you in this direction. You're still going to get it flinging over here to a certain degree, but it keeps you dry over here. Even the Polaris Pros don't have that. Like the new Turbo R and the Pro R, they don't have this lower door in them, which is crazy because it's such a necessary piece. It's something that I absolutely want on all my vehicles. I don't want this door up here. I want this piece. So anyway, a lot of talk about a door. The doors are decent. You can see that they're metal framed inside. They got little finishing touches up on this portion, which is nice, with a sturdy handle, decently sturdy hinges, and it does latch in nice and tight. It doesn't really rattle, though this piece here does flex a bit. It doesn't actually rattle, and the latch is very positive and easy to use. It's in a spot that's easy to reach, so I like that. Moving around the back, we've got these strange pods. Everybody who sees these wants to know what they are because they kind of look like rocket boosters, but they are definitely not rocket boosters. So this one is the CV inlet for the clutches, the cooling for the clutches, and the other side is the engine air intake. And they do have a filter in here. You pull this thing off, the filter's accessible. It's a design feature. If you love it or hate it, that's wherever you're at. It does make getting to your filters really easy. It gives them lots of flow around the filter, 360 degrees, instead of some of the vehicles. It just has those little intakes, you know, up on the side of the box or where have you. So this is, you know, functionally makes a lot of sense. I will say this though, when you factor in where this is located up about here, you know, if you put this thing in deep water, which it would have to be very deep, but a lot of guys do take these things in deep water, you are only able to go to here with the water. You can't go any higher without snorkeling it, of course. But, you know, like on a competitive vehicle, a lot of times the intakes are up in this area, up by your shoulder, which means you can take it in a lot deeper water before you have to worry about water ingestion. So that's something to keep in mind. These are a little on the low side. The fenders do a great job on this unit. This is something I was really impressed with when I was riding it. The little fenders on the front and then these fenders on the back. Say what you want about how they look. I don't know what to say about how they look. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. These here look like an afterthought and an add-on because they are, but they are extremely functional. They work amazing. These keep so much mud and grime off you. It's hard to describe. You have to experience it for yourself. These ones also at the rear here, these are not an add-on. This is the way it comes. This is how it looks. And these do a great job also of keeping that spray off the back tire from spinning around and hitting you in the back of the face. And they do a good job with it. Back here, you don't have a box. You have just this cargo rack. It's almost sort of reminiscent of the old Pioneer 500 from Honda, if everybody remembers that. It was like the cab, and then it just had a deck instead of a box. It was utility, of course, but this one is similar in how it kind of looks like there's nothing back here. There's not enough. So this is just a rack area. Now, there's an up and a downside to that. Most sport side-by-sides are seriously lacking in tie-down points. It's hard to tie stuff down. This one has all kinds of tie-down points if you want to use this rack area, and obviously CFMOTO makes this box that integrates perfectly. It's got even its own little kind of, I don't know, they probably have a name for it, but like a quick release system for accessories to bolt on back here. It's really quick and easy. So yeah, that's a nice feature, and I think if I was going to buy one of these, I'd definitely buy this box just so I have somewhere to store stuff that, you know, it's not going to fall out. I could throw stuff in here. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. You can see the cool red accent lighting back here as well. I love how it looks. I will say this though, the tail lights on this vehicle, while looking very cool, are in a position where they get covered in mud right away. So when you do ride in dirty conditions, you do lose a lot of your visibility on your tail lights. So that's something to consider if that matters to you. You got your rear bumper here, dual exit exhaust, which looks cool. They've done a good job with that actually. The exhaust system on this is actually pretty neat. With the dual exits, I like how that looks. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to do an exhaust on a almost 1000cc side-by-side, might as well make it look cool. And another thing this thing has that most sport side-by-sides don't is a 2-inch hitch receiver. So you can actually tow a trailer with this, or tow whatever you want, implements or anything you want. Most sport side-by-sides don't have that. It might be an add-on, sometimes a aftermarket add-on, not even from the company that builds the side-by-side. You have to go aftermarket. But CFMOTO includes it right here, ready to go. And they even include the 2-inch receiver. So you're like fully set up to tow stuff right when you buy it. Now back here we can see the trailing arms. And this is a point for me where I think I just can't praise it that much. I can't say that it's that great. These are just boxed steel trailing arms. They do have some skid plating up on the front. But when you look at any of the other companies, any of the other vehicles in the industry that are using trailing arms, they're all beefy, big, heavy-duty trailing arms. Now, maybe the idea behind this unit is that it's not meant to be driven quite that hard, and my experience with it is that it makes a much better sort of mellow riding side-by-side as opposed to like a hardcore, pure sport, hit and jump, slaying corner side-by-side. It's much more suited to trail riding. In which case these trailing arms would be just fine. But if you're any kind of an extreme rider, I think that these would end up getting very beat up and could be susceptible to damage. Likewise back here, when you look at the hubs and the whole area in the back here. So this is back here, I'll show you on this side. This is a great big forging right here. That's welded to the boxed trailing arm. It just isn't as substantial or as beefy as the other ones in the industry. And if you just take a look at any of the other competition, you'll see this piece here is gigantic. And that's because it needs to be like super strong. And in this case, it's much, much less robust, I'm gonna say. Again, sort of hinting at the fact that it's not really meant to take that ridiculous abuse that some sports side-by-sides seem to be meant to take. Now you have a kind of interesting 4-link setup back here. You got your 2 main links here, but then you have this extra link up in the front here for your camber. And I think that's really interesting how they've done that. So you can actually adjust, I don't know how to describe it, whether it's toe link maybe on the rear, whatever it is anyway, you can actually adjust that, which is pretty neat. And yeah, it's something that you don't see on other side-by-sides. At least you don't see it up front like that. I don't know why they did it that way. I have no idea what that's about, but it's just a unique design feature that this thing has that nobody else does. Now, let's move around inside and we'll talk about some of the interior features. I like how this door opens beyond 90 degrees. It goes all the way back, so it's easy to get in and out of. But once I'm in here, again, I said I like the seats. The seats are actually very nice. They're comfortable. They're soft enough. They have decent bolstering. Steering wheel is a great shape. It is adjustable, of course, like tilt steering, the way all sports side-by-sides have these days. But it has a major downside. It is made out of a kind of plasticky rubber, and I don't know if you can see it. You probably can. It's shiny. It has no texture. It's completely smooth. So when my gloves got slightly wet when I was driving this thing, my gloves slipped on it like crazy, and that was something I really didn't like. I would find a way to fix that. I don't know how. You can do something simple like just put little strips of grip tape on it or something to give yourself some grip in the areas that you drive most. I would do that. It is, however, a really nice looking steering wheel, probably one of the best in the industry. The other thing that's super nice as I'm sitting here is this gauge. Now, it's small. You're going to notice that it's not like, you know, the Villain has a 10-inch display. It's small, but it's super bright and it's packed full of useful information that's really easy to make out and read because it is so bright. Even though there's a lot of information on here, I can tell exactly what I'm looking at. I can find the information I want easily, and it's right in front of me. So I really like this gauge. I've said this about this vehicle and other CFMOTOs before. Their gauge is really nice, and I really, really like this one. It is with the steering wheel on the tilt column. Where is the tilt adjuster on this one right here? So it tilts with the wheel, which is the way I think they should be. Inside, again, I talked about the transmission. Absolutely fantastic shifting transmission. Park-in transmission as well as a parking brake. So that's something that you don't see on all vehicles, but it's double safety. As well, you have double safety here. You've got your key that turns the vehicle on and off, but you also have a kill switch that turns the vehicle on and off, which I don't know why that's there, but CFMOTOs come with a lot of extra stuff. You've got turn signals, you got 4-ways, lots of different, this is a button we couldn't figure out for the longest time. This button right here is your reverse override. So when you're in reverse and you want to go full throttle, you just push that. It's in a very bad spot for that, but it is there. We couldn't figure out what that was for the longest time until we finally got it. Your light switches, high and low beams, 4x4 with diff lock, and then you also have sport mode on this one. So it is multi-mode driving, and that's really nice. It's one thing I will say, as much as I like how the clutches are tuned, it's a little bit abrupt. So getting underway can be a little bit jerky, which is why having normal mode is really nice to smooth out the throttle inputs and make that takeoff at least a little bit smoother. Sport mode is pretty jerky. The throttle gets pretty aggressive. You got your outlets, so you get USB and then a 12 volt here. Nice to see those included. There's side-by-sides out there that still don't have USB plugs in them, which is just baffling to me. I can't figure that out at all. 2 cup holders, little storage bin down here for whatever. You're probably not going to put your phone in there, but you could. And yeah, your parking brake, as I said. Now you do have a little storage container here that's full of junk. It's right there, easily accessible. And it actually has a really nice passenger grab handle. Like, look at how sturdy this is. It doesn't rattle at all. These 2 levers pop down and I can adjust it. But when I pop them back up, it's a friction fit and they fit like no rattles. I mean, there's big North American manufacturers who can't figure out how to make a passenger grab handle that doesn't rattle. CFMOTO's done a great job with it. Very well textured. What's interesting is that the grab handle is super textured and rubberized. The steering wheel isn't. Go figure, right? Anyway, that pretty much covers off all the features of this thing and the different, things, my thoughts on it anyway. I do have room in here, though. My right foot, as the driver, has enough room to extend. My left foot is very cramped, pulled right up, almost bent. Well, I would say I'm bent 90 degrees. The seats are adjustable, but this one is all the way back. So that's as much room as I've got. So your left leg, my left leg, at being 6'1" tall, does feel a little bit cramped up. But my right leg feels just fine, and it would be the opposite for a larger person sitting in the passenger seat. If you're a smaller person, then it's not going to be a big issue. There'll be room in there for you. And you can also, as the passenger, move both of your feet into the extended part of the footwell. I can't do that as the driver because I got to drive. So anyway, that's that. Now, I know you guys always want to hear stuff running, so I will start this up. Kill switch on, engaged. That's all the RPM they let you have when you're in neutral. So there you go. There is the CFMOTO ZFORCE 950 HOEX. I said this multiple times. I said it in the test ride. I'll say it again here. My opinion of this vehicle is that it is much better suited to just normal trail riding, not overly aggressive, like pounding through whoops, full throttle, power slide sideways through the bush, hitting jumps. It doesn't seem very well suited for that. The handling and the suspension just really aren't up to the task. But in terms of just going out for a trail ride, I actually thought it worked very, very well. You can tune the suspension to be soft enough that it's comfortable. The motor's got lots of power for that kind of riding. Handling is just fine under those circumstances. So I didn't mention it does have power steering, so that's something that's there. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the CFMOTO ZFORCE 950 HOEX. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We do have more content coming. We're going to try and keep stuff going a little bit throughout the winter. Sometimes we tail off on our winter here in Ontario, but we're going to try and keep stuff going for you guys. So stay tuned for more.